You get singing and you're like, oh, we need to just not talk. Just keep singing. Oh, God is so good.
Amen. All the time.
All the time. God is good. Well, here we are. Sorry, I could go for hours. God is so good to us. This morning is the first week and the only week that we're going to do this sermon. It's not a series, because next week we have a concert coming in. This week it's going to be, I always say the same thing, different. Disciples Tournament of Champions. You guys ready? Yeah. So we've got two competitions, or two competitors today that we're going to look at. So I want just show of hands, or you can clap. I'd rather you clap. I'm going to give you two disciples. Okay? You've got Peter and you've got John. So if you're in Peter's camp, clap for Peter. There's some big fisherman fans out there. That's good. If you're in John's camp, clap for John. Wow. John the Beloved has so many more fans. I don't know if he's just more relatable or what, but I relate more with the fishermen, kind of rough and don't always have it together. But man, I'm passionate about what I do have, right? So we have a tendency to make a competition out of everything, don't we? Now, I've been surrounded by people that like this, and I confess I really do too. There's a few things we watch and pay attention to. One is Food Network, and what's it called? The Food Network Tournament of Champions, what do they call it?
Tournament of Champions.
That's the Tournament of Champions, right? And they get all these cooks together, and then they compete. You've got cooking. That's a competition. For me, eating should be a competition. Cooking should be what you do for the competition so I can eat it, right? I love it. It's fun. It's exciting, but they're going head to head. Then you've got, obviously sports, right? And well, this fall we'll revisit our Finding God in Tampa Bay sports series. We'll do that again this year. But right now, when I look at sports and I think about competition, it's like Stanley Cup's coming, playoffs coming, spring training. The NBA is there too, doing whatever they do, and they're starting to move toward their playoff push. Lots of big trades and big names because they want to beat the other guys. And we do that, and we try to find the team that we connect to. Right? Growing up, for me, I kind of didn't gravitate to a team like with basketball. I gravitated to players. My favorite player of all time, Dominique Wilkins. I wasn't really a Hawks fan, but I was a Dominique fan. Right? And then there's Adrian Dantley. Clearly, Adrian Dantley, he's got to be a great guy. He's got a great first name. Right? So I wasn't a Pistons fan, but I was a Dantley fan. Right? And obviously, the greatest of all time, Jordan. But those are the guys that I looked and I watched and you kind of cheered for him to beat the other guys. Well, Jordan hadn't played in a long time. Still the greatest ever. But I have to say that because they compare him to somebody else now. Oh, they're the greatest ever. Stop. Stop. I love that Jordan won't compare himself and say that he's the greatest ever. He says, I won't say that because it's disrespectful to the guys that went before me and played in a different era, different style, and built this game. Oh, that's good. So he is the greatest because of that, right? And so we even take that humility, what if it's real humility or not, and we even take that and make it competition. You turn on the news. It's not just about politics, it's competition. This side versus that side. Why do we have to have two sides? How about we have the Bible? Amen. And we vote the Bible, right? Why do we not just go with God's side?
That's right.
And you get all the other things in life, and we pit things against each other. Well, I'd rather go to Winn-Dixie because Publix is just too pricey. Well, Publix has nicer stuff. Well, here we go, comparing grocery stores. I mean, come on. We get passionate about the goofiest little things, don't we? Do we do that in our personal lives too? Do we do that in our spiritual lives? Absolutely. We compare one versus the other. So you've got John, the beloved, Jesus' favorite. Without question, he played favorites, right? And John was the one he called the beloved. Wow. But then it's Peter. Peter walked on water with Jesus. Peter preached Pentecost. Peter was a man of the people, right? Like, man, you got to get behind Peter. And so if we're going to have a race of who's the best disciple, you guys are waiting for me to pick one, aren't you? Because that's what we do. We expect a winner. I want to encourage us this morning to change the way we look at things. We seem obsessed with comparison. We seem obsessed with it. But we do that for different reasons, right? Sometimes we compare ourselves to others because we have a perfectionist drive, right? They're great and I'm not as good. I've got to be better. Or how come they aren't doing it the way I want it done? And you butt heads and you battle because you want it perfect. Sometimes we compare ourselves to other people because we have a low self-esteem. And we want to make ourselves look better. And that are usually people that are just loaded up in Facebook, right? Or Instagram or wherever. They're bad-mouthing everybody else. And they're in the comments blowing it up. And because they're hiding behind a phone, you know. If they were face-to-face with somebody, they probably wouldn't say half the stuff they say. We want to be better than the other person, or at least, when we know we aren't, we want to be perceived as better than the other people. We want others to think we've got it all together, and you should be like me. Look how good this is. Now, jokingly, I had a professor who taught theology and was one of my favorite professors. And he started talking one day about the glorified body, and he said, it looks like mine. Now, bless him, I'm a big fellow, but he was, at that point, he's lost a lot of weight now, but at that point, you know, let's just say he was a level guy. He had the bubble in the middle. So, you know, it wasn't really, of course he was joking about having the glorified body and what the body would look like when we get to heaven. He was teasing, but for some reason, we feel the need to either build ourselves up or put ourselves down and compare us to whomever else. We feel that problem maybe because of insecurity, and we don't feel like we measure up. And while we're confident in who we are isn't as big as who maybe we want it to be, or as strong as maybe we want it to be. And sometimes we do comparison or competition in our lives because we seek validation. I'm right about this. Well, most of the time, it doesn't matter if you're right about Winn-Dixie or Publix. It doesn't matter if you're right about LeBron or Jordan. How is that going to change the world? Jordan wins. How is that going to change the world? It's not. It could change you, or it could reveal you and show why you have to have that pressure going. Spiritually, we do the same thing. That's scary, isn't it? But it's true. Spiritually, we do the same thing. So we had a lot of folks in John's court. I think the reason for that is John was the easy road. We're going to read about that in a moment. Peter had a rough road. He made some big mistakes, and he did them publicly. And I'm glad, because I made some big mistakes. But God still used Peter to start the church. Isn't that crazy? So when we look at comparing the disciples and the tournament of champions, we're not really going to pit them against each other, though they did that themselves. Spiritually, we sometimes compare versus someone else to assure ourselves that we're okay. Well, that person still does this, so I'm fine. If they're going to heaven, I'm going to heaven. Surely, I'm not as bad off as they are. Or we deflect the attention. So we have to share or talk about somebody else so that you don't really see that I'm hurting or that I need help. Or we excuse our own behavior because we don't want to have to change it. And so we look at all the other things among the other people so we don't have to adjust the way we act to measure up to what God says. Competition, it was actually alive and well and on display in the midst of the disciples while Jesus was still with them. That's crazy. I mean, we would probably do it too. But that's crazy. Let's read in John. John 21, 18 through 23. Right? Jesus has just come to Peter to restore him. So this is after Peter's denied him. Jesus has come to Peter to restore him. Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter will glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. This is the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper, and he had said, "Lord, who is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he asked, "Lord, what about him?" So Jesus has just told Peter, "You're going to give your life for me, just like I gave my life for you." And Peter's instinct is, there's John the Beloved. What about him? If I've got to go through that, why doesn't he? Or does he? What's going to happen to him? Look over there. Deflect away from me. Don't put me in that position. Let's look here. So I don't have to feel that and think about that. Jesus answered, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you?" Ouch. Man. That is rough. Jesus just laying it out there. He's like, "That's none of your business, Peter." What? I'm just telling you. He just says it. What is that to you? Because of this, the rumor spread among the believers that this disciple would not die. But Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you?" Now we know that this really got Peter's goat. Here Peter is, just back with the disciples, after denying Christ. And he still has the nerve to not only say, "What about that guy?" but to talk to the other disciples and tell them Jesus said he's not going to die. And deflect what he did wrong to now let's look at John. You see what he's doing? He's using that competition to push away, "I did bad. I denied him." Instead, he's like, "Look at John. John's not even going to die." Jesus never said it. Peter mistook it. Now, I give Peter props because early in this verse, we see that Jesus tells him in a very obscure way that he's going to die. And Peter got it right off the bat. He understood. But then when it gets to this portion, because he didn't like what he heard, Peter goes on the defense. And he starts spreading the problem. And he goes the wrong direction. And competes now against John. Comparison always seems to do this. We compare ourselves usually with two kinds of people. We either compare ourselves spiritually and in every other way to the very best, or we compare ourselves to the worst, or at least somebody that we know we're better than. Right? Because when you compare in life, you don't want to be below the best. And you don't want to be at the very bottom. So let's look at those other people Let's look at them and compare. Spiritually, they come on Sundays and they come on Wednesdays. But you know what? They never give any comments or input on Wednesday night. They never talk. I wonder if they even know Jesus. I know, we don't say that, right? But inside, we're like, I don't have to speak up even though God's telling me to because so-and-so doesn't speak up. I don't have to raise my hand in worship because the other guy doesn't raise their hand in worship. I don't have to come to the altar when God tells me to respond and come and kneel and pray because that's embarrassing. And what do all those people think? They'll think I'm not as good as them. Right? We really do compare ourselves without realizing we're comparing ourselves. So this morning, our tournament of champions is going to be us against the real comparison. The problem with comparison, you only compare yourself with the very best or the very worst. Let me give you a sports example. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. As I was growing up, we had a guy came out of college, a quarterback, and he was the next best thing. He was going to rewrite the record books. And Ryan Leaf took his first paycheck and retired in like a year. I'll take the money and run. Not really a bad choice. Because he got the money, right? But at the same time, he could have been great. But he chose something different. So now, anytime someone doesn't do well in the NFL, oh, they're just another Ryan Leaf. Right? Just another Jamarcus Russell. Another guy that was a bust who could have been great. Or somebody like SGA from Oklahoma City Thunder or LeBron, or it was Kobe at one point. They're going to be the next Jordan, the next compared to the best. Right now there's a chase on in the NHL. Ovechkin, he's going to be the best scorer ever. He's going to beat Wayne Gretzky's numbers. Okay, he's also been playing for 72 years. Right? It's like, Gretzky did it in this amount of time. Ovechkin needed twice that time. But he's going to have the biggest number ever. So he's the greatest. No. The best running back ever. I'm going to say Terrell Davis. 2 years in a row, over 2,000 yards. Nobody else did it. But he got injured, and he doesn't have a long career. So you're not going to go with Terrell Davis. You're going to say Barry Sanders or Walter Payton. Right? You're not going to say Mike Allstott, but you want to because we're in Tampa. We want to compare with the very best. I encourage you that when you set the bar based on the circumstances they were in versus your circumstances, which are so different, you cannot compare. You can't compare a 3-guard to a 4. That's a forward. Different game. Different body style. Different era. Different everything. Jordan still wins. But you can't. You can't do it. You can't compare a quarterback to a wide receiver and say he's the best player ever. You can't do it. You can't compare a Christian who's been through the ringer in life and lost loved ones and struggled with employment and hurt physically and beaten down by people they trust and compare them to someone who's had an easy road. You don't know the circumstances. Peter didn't know what John had been through. And he didn't know what John was going to go through. And he didn't know John was going to be used to see things human eyes were never meant to see. You don't know because you don't know the circumstances. So don't compare yourself to that great someone. There's a lot of big preachers that I like throughout history. But I'm never going to compare myself to Billy Graham. I'm not Billy Graham. Not gonna be. Don't want to be. His circumstances were very, very different than my circumstances. There's a lot of great guitar players out there. I'm never going to be Joseph Satriani. Most of you guys are like, "Ooh, trust me, he's good." But I'm never going to do that. But I can play and worship and really worship through that instrument. I'm not going to compare myself to something I'm not made for. But I am going to compare myself to what God has made me to be. Because if I'm reaching to be the best me that God made me to be, I will fulfill the mission He has for me. He needed Billy Sunday to be talked to by a Sunday school teacher. You don't even know that Sunday school teacher's name. But you probably heard of Billy Sunday. And if not, you've heard of Billy Graham. And without one, you didn't get the other. Because the Sunday school teacher did what he should do and was the person God made him to be. You don't need the fame. You don't need the glory. I don't want it. But I do want to be the best me I can be for Him. I want to compare me against me. 1 Peter 4, 10-11 says this: each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To Him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. I encourage you. Whatever He's called you to do, gifted you to do, laid in front of you to do it for Him. And give Him every ounce of the glory. Do it for Him. Because then you will continue to grow to be what God made you to be. Do you want to be the best you? You can't do it by reading a book unless that book is the Word. And the Word applied to your life through Jesus and His interaction with us. So the Holy Spirit can guide and direct us, empower us, fill us, and change us to be the best us we can be. Compare yourself to God's vision of you, not even your own. I love that the verse says, whatever gift you have, it's by the grace of God. And that grace comes in so many different forms. Why? Because what I need is different from what Doug needs. What I need is different from what Ken needs. What you need is different from the person sitting next to you. The impact you can make will be different from the person sitting next to you. But the impact you can make can be just as powerful and eternally significant as the person next to you. You can make changes happen, but not if you're just too busy comparing yourself with the best and I just can't reach that. That's my excuse. I can't be that guy. I'm too short. I'm too old. I'm too tired. I don't have the education. I don't have the opportunities. I have never learned that trade. Whatever your excuse is, God tells you, go do it. He's got the gift. He doesn't need your skill. He needs your willingness. 2 Timothy tells us something interesting. And it reminds me of when I was managing stores for the company that I worked for. All the store managers in the district would get together once a month and do our P&Ls, profit and loss. And we'd get together and have meetings. And we would go through numbers, and you would probably just be bored to tears with all the things we would go through. Page after page of every little thing that could be measured within the company at the store you managed. We had one guy who was good. He was very good. We really liked the guy. But his goal was not to be recognized at the top. He didn't want to be at the bottom, and now you're losing your job, right? And he would openly say in the meetings, I want to be incredibly average, remarkably mediocre. That way he keeps his job, but they don't expect rock star behavior out of him. Now that's kind of sketchy. Because I can live in that middle ground and I'm okay. So I can be good enough to get to heaven, but I don't want to, be expected to take other people with me. Sorry, that kind of hurts. Man, it's true, isn't it? But instead, one day, Danny's light came on. And his store took off. And he worked his tail off. And he was number one over and over again. Because he was tired of being mediocre. He was tired of being average. He wanted to do something he was made to do and be significant. Maybe you've been floating through this Christian life a little bit. And you're just riding along, waiting for him to get the bus up to heaven. I got good news for you. The bus is coming. I got bad news for you. You weren't called to sit in the middle of the bus. You were called to drive the bus and take others with you. That's who we're supposed to be. What gift do you have? What did God give you? He gave John vision into heaven and eternity. And he gave Peter the power and passion to preach Pentecost. Two very different people doing amazing things for God because they stopped focusing on each other and started focusing on Him. That's awesome. It's awesome. 2 Peter 2:15. Be diligent to present yourself approved to God, a worker that does not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I love guys that work hard. I love people that work hard. You want to see some folks that work hard? And I haven't asked if it's okay to brag on anybody, but look at the folks at our food pantry on Saturdays. Right? Like, oh, I don't do the people thing. And what are they doing within an hour? Getting names, getting them going, getting them food, helping them, loving them. It's amazing. It's like, I don't want to do that. It's like, oh, God put you here for a reason. Let's just let you have the opportunity to see what He does. And you tell me if I'm wrong, guys that have done it. Ladies that have done it. Isn't it impactful that you make a difference in someone else's life? Because you are willing to put you aside and serve them. So let me encourage you. Don't compare yourself to the best. Compare yourself to the best you can be. Don't be incredibly average and stay off the bottom so you don't get fired. Don't live Christian life so you got fire insurance. And so you'll put that together quick. Live for Him in the power He's given you, in the gift He's given you, and the grace He's given you, and you're going to see your life full in ways you've never seen it before. Powerful, willing to do and love, and you're going to turn around and go, oh my word, I'm happy. Isn't that what everybody wants anyway? But when you do it His way, you're going to realize, I don't need all that other stuff. I tried so many things. All I needed was Him and to do things the way He asked me to do it. Be the best you that God needs. Now, when God made you, the Bible tells us that He formed you and knit you together in your mother's womb. So from the moment you were conceived, He had a plan. In fact, before you were conceived, He had a plan for you. God did not do this. You ready? This is what God did not do. God did not go, I'm going to make Gary. Gary's made. Now I got to give Gary something to do. What do we give Gary to do? That's not how God worked. It's not how He continues to work. Here's what He does. There's going to be a need over here. And I need someone built specifically to meet that need. I need somebody that can come in and is willing to do what I've given them the power and the gift and the talent to do. I'm going to make Gary perfect for that job. And that's his goal in life. And when Gary does that goal, he's filled. And he knows he's reached where he needs to be. And the beauty of God is that He's eternal. So He's not bound by time and space. He's not bound by anything you can imagine. And so He goes, yes, Gary did it. And I'm glad, because when I made Gary, I also had this need. And now that he's learned this and done that, he has the gift to do this. And Gary does that. And God goes, now! Now that he's done that, he has the gift and the confidence to do this, which I made him to do before I ever let him be conceived. He has a plan for your life. It's not a one-time, I finished it, I'm good, I'm just going to ride this out. It is, I don't stop until I've reached every high He has for me to reach. And I'm going to succeed. And Mom, your phone is ringing. We are to compare ourselves against only one standard. You're to compare yourself against only one standard. You know that that's a spam call because everyone she knows she's in church. Right? So we can ignore the call. Not a big deal. Right? We compare ourselves to one standard, only one standard. Psalm 16:11 says this. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Jeremiah 29:11, you guys have heard this 1,000 times. For I know the thoughts or the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. Peace, not evil, to give you a future and hope. He has a plan for you. He's not done with your plan. He's not done. You may be in a place where you've done it all and I'm good. Or you may be in a place where you're like, I can't get any lower. No matter where you are on the journey, He is with you. And He wants to help you get to that next thing. And when you give Him your gift, and use His grace, you're going to reach it. And it's not over then, because then it just gets better. And then it just gets better. And then it just keeps getting better. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, is that it? I'm in heaven? I still wanted to bless somebody. No, because when we get to heaven, we'll be all about God, right? Compare yourself to one standard. What God has called you to be today. That's the standard. If you are who He made you to be now, you're living in His will. You're following His dream and His plan for you. Now that dream, that plan, it's got a long future in front of it. So don't sit still, but pursue Him. You see, we don't just chase after God when we're desperate. We pursue Him till we hit heaven's door, because He is dragging us, loving Him fully, all the way to that next beautiful step. He's guiding us to that new fulfillment that we didn't know we needed. And you're going to turn around and go, man, I'm so happy because I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. This morning we're going to sing. And as we sing, the song is The Heart of Worship. This song was written years and years ago now by a worship leader who had gotten consumed with the music part of worship. The focus had shifted from praising and experiencing God to the note and the sound and the tempo and having the right people in the right places. It became work. And it was all about the performance and not about the one they should be performing to. So they stopped. They just flat stopped doing worship until God finally broke through. And they finally grabbed Him again. And they wrote this song. Let me read you, knowing the story now. When the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth, that will bless your heart. I bring you more than a song, because a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I make when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. That is a confession and a prayer and worship. And we're going to do that together. This morning I challenge you. Find what God has for you. And all you got to do is ask and be open. Pursue and search. He's going to take you there. And grab a hold of that life He has for you. Be fulfilled because you're not comparing you to someone else or something else. You are comparing you to the best you that you can be. The you He wants you to be today. Yesterday's over. Tomorrow is coming. Be God's you today. Stand with me for prayer. Lord, we love you. And God, we know that in worship, we get closer to you.